Welcome to Creator Toolbox, a show brought to you by us, the ServiceNow Developer Program, where we demo new ServiceNow features for every developer's toolbox. My name is Earl Duque, Senior Developer Advocate here at ServiceNow, and I would like to introduce Dan.
Hi, my name is Dan Grady. I'm part of the process mining business unit here at ServiceNow.
We are talking about process mining. Dan is going to talk to us everything about what's going on with process mining and especially for what's new in Yokohama. So I'll let Dan jump right into it.
Sure. So for those that are not familiar with process mining, what it allows us to do is essentially X-ray all of the workflows that we have running inside of our organizations and start to show us where and how we could be doing better for anyone and everyone involved with them. So if you think about it, when we design our applications and our business processes, there's a vision in our head for how they should perform and how things should work. Right? And when we design them for both completeness and efficiency to provide the best experience possible for as many people as possible. Now, unfortunately, what we design is not always what plays out in reality. The reality is not all the work is going to be flowing through the optimal path. And that's going to have a negative impact on both the people requesting a service as well as the people that are trying to deliver that service. The challenge that most organizations face is seeing that reality so they can start to make the changes to the process and to the application to improve the experience that people are having. What process mining does is accelerate our ability to see that reality so we can start to make those changes to keep up with the changing organizations that we're working in. Now, some people say, hey, Dan, don't we already have a ton of dashboards that give us visibility into our processes and how they're performing? How is this different? Well, the dashboards that we've historically used are great at helping us answer the what style questions, like how many incidents, tickets, cases, whatever the work might be, did we work? Which types were they? How long did it take to close those things? And probably most importantly, how are we doing as it relates to our KPIs and our targets, and are we improving our cycle times? All super important questions that we hope you're using dashboards just like this to help you ask and answer. But here's the deal. I've been doing this a little while, and one of the things I've learned is this. Information tends to be one of the most addictive and contagious things out there. You give somebody a little bit, and they always want more. So the first thing that happens when we get a dashboard like this out the door is somebody in leadership starts asking questions like, why are we missing our ESAT and CSAT targets? Why are our closure times trending? And they're like, why? And the answers to those follow-up why questions, they don't live in dashboards like this. They live in process mining. So what we've done on the ServiceNow platform is we've enabled people now to drill down directly from the dashboards they're creating into the process mining workspace to get a better understanding of the whys behind their KPIs they're seeing on that higher level. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to walk you through a brief little demonstration of the process mining workspace, all the different bells and whistles that we give you inside of here to slice and dice your process data and identify those inefficiencies, the bottlenecks, the rework loops, and all those different opportunities to improve your processes. So what we're looking at on the screen here is, in this case, we've mined 21,000 incidents. Any work that you have, whether they be incidents, cases, work that's flowing through a custom application that we've created, are things that we can apply process mining to. These 21,000 incidents have taken 1,500 different routes to get to closure, and on average, they're taking 8 days to get there. The first thing that we do with every process mining project is we create 2 visualizations to help the person doing the analysis better understand their data that they're looking at. The first visualization is going to be a closure time trend for that data set, showing you the average closure time over time. And then we also give them a histogram showing them a distribution of those closure times. Let's say, in this case, the majority of these incidents took 0 to 4 days to close, and then we have another large chunk here that closed within 8 to 12 days, simply to help the person doing the analysis get a better understanding of the data that they're looking at. If they've created their own dashboards, if you've created your own dashboards on the platform that might be useful to give the person doing the analysis more context, you have the ability to embed those inside of the workspace for this project as well. Now, as I move down the screen, we get to what is my favorite part of the solution. Everybody loves the visualized process maps that you're about to see. They're super powerful. I'm going to show it to you in a second. But in addition to the visualized process maps, we also package up this concept of improvement opportunities. These improvement opportunities are really powerful, and there's 2 flavors, rule-based and automated, and I'll walk you through examples of each. The first example on the list here is an example of a rule-based one. What the solution flagged is incidents that are going into the awaiting caller info state. And in this case, we have 8127, or 38% of our incidents touch the awaiting caller info state at least once. And probably the most important number here is this 42 years. There's 42 years worth of time packaged up in these incidents moving in and out of that awaiting caller info state. Like, even if we could reclaim 1 or 2% of that 42 years, that's going to be a win for us from an organizational perspective. So right from here, what can we do? We can take a number of different actions, but specifically, we could drill down into a visualized process map of just those 8127 to continue the conversation with the data. The reason I call this an example of a rule-based improvement opportunity is we specifically told the solution to look for this scenario. These are great for those situations in which you have a hypothesis around where your inefficiencies are in a given process, but you just haven't had a good way to capture the data you need to help you figure out how big of a problem it actually is. Now, the next one on the list here is an example of what we call a more automated opportunity. What the solution flagged is rework on the in-progress state, meaning these 2,000 incidents went into the state of in-progress, left that state, and eventually came back later in their life cycle. In fact, one incident took that trip 11 times. And then again, the most important number here is there's 33 years worth of time packaged up in this rework loop in the process, typically an indication of a quality issue. And again, we could dive into these. The reason I call this a more automated one is because we're just using a pattern detector, right, an inefficiency detector to flag this. Right, we have a whole library of these inefficiency detectors looking for common things like rework, things that are going A, B, C, back to A in the process. We have a ping pong detector looking for things going A, B over and over again. Very handy when we start doing assignment group analysis. There's a slow transition detector. So let's say 85% of a certain type of work is taking less than 2 hours to move from a new to an in-progress state, but there's 2% over here that is taking longer than 8 days to move between those steps in the process. Flag those. Right? These automated ones are really helpful for those situations where we don't know what we don't know about our processes, and they start to surface potential inefficiencies and opportunities. Are they all going to be valuable? No, but just like a dating app, you can swipe left on the ones that are important to you, and swipe right on the ones that aren't important to you. They simply are meant to help you get started. The combination of these two are super powerful. Right? I always like to compare them to when I was playing hide and seek as a kid. When I was at home, I had a home field advantage. I knew the 2 or 3 best hiding spots. So when I was way more efficient at finding my friends than they were at finding me. The same is true with a lot of our customers. Many of you have a good idea of where your inefficiencies are. You just haven't had a good way to capture the data you need to help you to prioritize which ones to act on first. No shortage of opportunities to improve in every organization and with every process. You just can't act on them all at once. You need data to help you drive the decisions about where to start in most organizations. Hey, Earl, I'll just pause there. Do you have any questions, comments, thoughts about any of the pieces that we've covered so far?
Yeah, so whenever I think of process mining, I hear people comment on the idea that, like, oh, if we're trying to improve our processes, we're trying to have this conversation between employees and reports or analytics and trying to figure out what things we can improve. And that conversation is an ongoing conversation. I've heard people talk about process mining as, is it supposed to replace, is it like the end of the conversation and we go to the process mining? No, like, is that the right way of thinking of it? Or is it more of the process mining part of it just makes that conversation go faster?
That's spot on. So it is an ongoing conversation. There's a couple of different parts of the comment that just made. It is definitely an ongoing conversation. So I always like to compare, because every now and then you get those folks that say, well, if I use process mining, like, it's going to show me where the problems are. I'm going to fix them. Why am I ever going to need to come back to process mining again? And that's like I like to call that the blockbuster view of the world. Like, if you think that you're never going to have to change anything, guess what? You become like Blockbuster and you no longer exist. I always like to think about an organization as like a beach of inefficiencies, right? And what process mining is, it's kind of like that metal detector. Like, you use it, you walk along the beach, and it's going to beep louder in some places and softer in others. And where it beeps louder, that's where you're going to have to dig a little bit deeper to uncover that inefficiency and how you potentially could address it. Could you do that without the metal detector? Heck yeah, but it's a heck of a lot easier to do it with the metal detector. And why I like the beach analogy is because that crazy guy or lady with the metal detector, guess what? They show up at the beach every single day. Like, why? Same beach. Why do they come every day? Because the waves are washing new stuff up onto the shore every day. And that's what happens with our organizations. There's constantly factors inside and outside of the organization that are changing, that are bringing new opportunities to us. I was just working with a customer yesterday where they used process mining to find a whole bunch of routing situations or issues because they just rolled out Zscaler in the organization and people had not yet figured out how to route that work effectively through the organization. So you need to use process mining on an ongoing basis. In terms of who does it, it's usually a two to tango type of situation with process mining where there's somebody that's digging into the process data. They might not be a process SME or expert on that process. They know how to use process mining, but then they get together with the person who owns the process owner, line of business leader, or whatever it might be, and they have a dialogue about what they're seeing in the data and what's potentially an opportunity and what's normal behavior inside of the process. So it's an ongoing conversation, and we believe that the way that we've approached process mining, making it so easy, as you'll see in this demonstration here today, is it becomes something you can make continual improvement, something that's more a part of your routine and not a once or twice a year type of science project that people do.
Sure. And then as you continue your demo, if a person watching this at home wants to try this out with demo data so that they can kind of show it off to their organization or just show this video to their organization, how would they go about doing
Earl,
that?
I've got a number of great answers for you now on this one. The first one is there's a Now Learning course out there on the Now Learning site, and there's an associated lab instance that gets spun up with that course. So if you just want to get hands-on, try it, get a feel for what it is with some demo data, that's one route to go with. The second route is every customer has the ability to turn this on in their sub-production environment and mine up to 3,600 records per project. The trick with that approach is that when process mining works with the audit log data, which by default doesn't get cloned down to that sub-production environment typically, you just want to make sure that you clone down with audit log data. It's a checkbox in the clone request setting, or when you set up your clone request, just make sure you toggle the exclude audit log data to that off state. And then here's the third one, and this is probably the best one, and the one that I'm most excited about. Every customer, when they upgrade to Xanadu, has process mining activated on their production instance, and there's an evaluation project for incident included there, and allow them to mine up to the 3,600 incidents that closed within the last 7 days so they can get a feel for what process mining might look like in their environment. That's in Xanadu. As they upgrade to Yokohama, there's going to be an evaluation project with those same boundaries for HR case as well as customer service case. So a number of different ways for people to get hands-on and live and breathe what process mining could do for them.
That's awesome. You both answered that question, and when I was going to say, "Well, what about people with case or HR?" You answered that question too. That's perfect. That's the best kind of getting to try it because it's an evaluation period, and they can decide from there. Once you're hooking them in once they see the benefits of it.
Yeah, I don't want to say it's a gateway drug, but it's a gateway drug.
That's great.
All right. So from here, right, we could drill down right into the process map for this subset and do a number of different things, but I'm going to jump you over to the process map itself. And this is, I don't want to call this eye candy because eye candy isn't as useful as what I'm about to show you, but this is what usually gets people's initial attention is this visualized process map of the reality of what's going on. But as you just saw, those improvement opportunities are really powerful in terms of jump-starting the analysis that we're doing. So again, I'll give you a little bit of a harbor tour of what we can do inside of this workspace. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit on this map so we can see the map itself. So what we're looking at in this case is how incidents are moving from state to state in the process and the volume and velocity between those transitions in the process. Just so you can see here, I'm going to do this. Just so you can see here what we've done, and same 21,000 incidents, same 8-day average duration, same 1,500 routes. And you might be saying to yourself, man, Dan, that doesn't look like 1,500 routes. And that's because by default, we just show you the top 20%. But if I wanted to, I can make this really messy, really fast. And this is where people's governance, risk, and compliance folks and their organizations start to get a little squirrely in their chairs. I'm just going to bring it back to something a little bit more manageable here. And we'll dig into it. Now, for me, first time I saw one of these maps, I had no idea what I was looking at. But they kind of reminded me of ski trails. And if I think back to when I used to ski, anytime I started going down the mountain, but then had to go back up the mountain, certainly wasn't the best experience for me. Definitely wasn't the fastest way to get down the mountain. So I always look for these lines that are going back up the hill because they represent some form of rework in the process, and rework is going to slow us down. So in this case here, we've identified these 2,600 incidents that are going from the state of awaiting caller info back to the in progress state. So there's 2,600 unique occurrences of that, and then 3,300 total occurrences, meaning about 700 incidents took this trip more than once. And then probably the most important number again, 18 years. There's 18 years of time packaged up in these incidents just going from awaiting caller back to in progress, which is a crazy number. But it's even crazier if you start to think to yourself, wait a minute, nothing starts in a waiting caller. It's got to get there first. All right, so what we can do here is we can use this bottleneck analysis to show us all the situations in which, in this case, an incident touches the state of a waiting caller. And I can see here, here's the arc we were just looking at, the awaiting caller in progress in the 18 years, and here's the other half of that journey, the in progress to awaiting caller, and there's 21 years. So 39 years worth of time packaged up in things going in progress, awaiting caller, back to in progress again. If we could just get 2% of that time back, it's a huge win for us. So what do we do next? Well, right from here, we can drill down into and just focus in on those incidents that are touching the state of awaiting caller info and narrow it down to those. And there you'll see here, I've got 8127 occurrences of that. Remember that summary and insights page? The first thing on our list, we could have jumped right to this part of the analysis, but I wanted you to see a little bit more of the bells and whistles inside of the workspace itself. But that's the power of those improvement opportunities. They can really streamline how we dig into our data. Now, what do we do next? Well, let's slice and dice these incidents touching a waiting caller even further. We've got all these breakdowns on the left. I can slice and dice it by assignment group, category, priority. Any structured data that you have, choice or reference field on a table, you can use as a breakdown to slice and dice your data and understand it a little bit better. I always like to start with channel when we talk about things going into an awaiting caller state, because if we can improve the intake, guess what? Maybe reduce the number of times we need to go back and forth to the user. So I can see here the majority of these come in via self-service and portal, but check out email. Work that comes in via email, on average, is taking a whole week longer than those other channels. So maybe we start there. And it kind of makes sense. Like, email's a pretty unstructured channel. You'd expect some back and forth, but like a whole week? Come on, we can do better. So we've narrowed it down to those 1,200 that come in via email, go into a waiting caller. What do we do next? Well, I can use this histogram to focus on things touching a waiting caller 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Because you're in the platform, you have that unique advantage of being able to get down to the detailed records themselves. Like, there's so much actionable information that lives at the record level. This is a huge advantage for us as an in-platform process mining solution, to be ability to get down to this level. We respect all the ACLs, so people can only see what they want to see. And then I always love to show this feature, Earl. Like, this isn't even a process mining thing. It's just like one of the most underutilized capabilities on the platform is this launch interactive analysis. If you think about it, like, any sort of analytics that you're doing is a conversation you're having with the data. You ask it a question, it gives you an answer. Based on that answer, you ask it a follow-up question. Well, there's all these things on the platform that help enable that conversation we're having with our data. This launch interactive analysis in a single click can take those incidents that came in via email, touch a waiting caller, which you saw a week's worth of bottleneck, and turn it into an interactive dashboard for us to continue that conversation with the data. Then, last thing here, there's so much gold in that unstructured data, the short descriptions, the descriptions. Right? What we're able to do is use some of the AI and machine learning on the platform to harvest some of that gold that lives in that unstructured data. Like here, we can see, guess what? There's a whole bunch of these things coming in via email and going into a waiting caller. It's just people trying to update their email address and their profile. Like, we totally should have a catalog item, a virtual agent conversation, some form of self-service to handle that situation. And you know what? Maybe the organization does. They just need to market a little bit better so people stop sending emails about it. Because look, emails take a whole week longer than the other channels. Like, how do we got to be able to do better. And now that we've identified that, what do we do next? Well, we want to make sure we capture that and have it followed up on. We can add a note right from here to ensure somebody digs a little bit deeper. Or if you're not familiar, there's applications on the platform like Continual Improvement Management and Automation Center that are designed specifically to help us capture, track, and prioritize all our opportunities to improve. We've got a direct connection right from here into those applications so things don't get lost in the shuffle. I'll pause there. Hey, Earl, any questions, comments, thoughts about any of that stuff that I just ran through? I know I'm a little bit long-winded, but I love this stuff.
You're not long-winded at all. So, I mean, the last thing you just showed, I really like when you started showing off the cluster analysis stuff, just because that really is like, process mining is you're looking at data so that you can get to action items, and that really ties together the whole idea of like, okay, well, what are our potential action items on all the stuff that we're seeing here? When you click that, I was like, oh, that's probably where it starts clicking for a lot of people. Like, oh, we're drilling down until we can find something that is actually a cluster of things that we can act on, kind of thing.
You're spot on. That's actually, Earl, I mentioned it, but I just want to double down on it because it's a huge advantage that we have by having process mining in the platform. There's other process mining solutions on the marketplace, but I don't want to make this salesy, but they charge based on the volume of data that you move into their solutions. So if you think about where the actionable information lives at the work note level, the additional comment level, the unstructured level, to move all of that data off of an application or a platform like ServiceNow or SAP or something like that into another solution, time consuming, not easy, and also could get very, very expensive. We have such an advantage because we have direct access to where the actionable information actually lives.
Right.
Huge, huge advantage.
Benefit of a platform.
Yes, 100%. So a couple of other things I always like to show. One is this ability to do this side-by-side comparison inside of here. And this is great for comparing different regions, different lines of business, and how the process is performing in those different areas. But one of the most popular ways, and specifically as a developer, one of the popular ways that we see people thinking about using this capability is this ability to do what I like to call before and after a process change analysis. So let's say we made a process change on like October 31st or something like that. On one side of the map or the screen, we can show the work that closed prior to the process change. And on the other side, we can show the work that closed after the process change. And now I can start to get an understanding of what the impact of that change was. In this case, guess what? We're an hour faster after making that process change. But we can also now use this side-to-side view to understand if there was any adverse effects to the change. Sometimes, right, higher level metrics hide the fact that things are starting to kind of go off the rails underneath the covers. And being able to get visibility into that right away is really, really important. And being able to do this side-by-side comparison analysis helps in that fashion. I actually always like to kind of quote our good friend Chris Betty here. One of the things that he mentioned at one point was that process mining, he believes, allows us to innovate faster here at ServiceNow now that we have it. Because as soon as we roll a new process out, we're not worried about getting that process 100% right the first time. We can get it out there faster because we know we're going to have visibility into how it's performing from day one. So from day one, we're immediately going to start to see if things are going according to plan or where they're going off the rails. Then last thing I like to show in here, and this happens to be my favorite use case for process mining. So we just looked at how things were moving state to state in the process, but anything that's changing on any record in the platform and being captured in the audit logs is stuff we can visualize with process maps. So one of the most popular use cases is looking at how work is moving from team to team in the organization. I've been with ServiceNow for about 9 years now, Earl. Every customer that I've ever worked with has asked me for the same report. So much so that I've given it a name. I like to call it the finger pointing report. Like everybody wants to know who's holding on to the work the longest. I need to know who's holding on to the work the longest. Or if you're a more glass half full person, we call that the opportunity to improve report. Process mining makes it very easy to start to answer that question. So instead of looking at how work is moving from state to state in the process, we can start to look at how it's moving from group to group, team to team, person to person, and understand where those bottlenecks are. And we can use this one piece of the solution called variation analysis that will allow us to look at all the different routes that work is taking to get to closure. And what we can do is we can see here that we've got these 26 that are going from CX Support Americas to Solana Tech Support back to CX Support Americas. And on average, it's taking them 1 month to make that journey. But like, who's holding on to the work the longest in that scenario? So what we can do is we can narrow it down to these 26. And we can see that the work is coming in. It goes to CX Support Americas. They hang on to it for an average of a day before they transfer it over to Solana Tech, who on average is hanging it on to 4 weeks, and then they transfer it back to that first group. We now know who's holding on to the work the longest, and we can start to have that conversation about like, hey, can we train this first team up to handle those type of cases? Or you know what, maybe we can use task intelligence to bypass this first team, or a routing rule to bypass team one and get it directly to the second team, saving us a day on average per case. And why does the second team have to transfer back to the first team? Like, what's going on there? I don't know what the answer is or the solution is, but we now have the data we need to make the case for doing or making one of those changes and have that conversation, like we were mentioning earlier, with the different stakeholders that are impacted by this this multi-team or multi-hop scenario. Very, very popular use case. I will say every customer that we turn process mining on, we surface a whole bunch of routing issues that they're having or multi-hop situations that we can improve. In fact, we actually have on the community something we call the use case series, because process mining is a new muscle for most organizations, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just like, when you mentioned earlier the Peloton behind me, like when you go to use a new, you go to Peloton and you're doing a new exercise, they always give you that little like 5-minute video or 30-second video to show you how easy it is to get started or how to do the exercise. We've done the same thing with process mining. There's like 10 to 15 very, very common ways in which you could apply process mining and the types of analysis to help you see some immediate opportunities like this finger pointing or multi-hop use case, things like SLA breach analysis or looking for automation opportunities, whether that before and after a process change. What we've done is we've kind of captured those in little 5-minute videos that we've put up on the community site in that use case series. Because work, I know everybody is a little bit different and every organization is different, but work is work in some senses in terms of where the inefficiencies tend to surface. And we've started to learn a lot of those common places where we can apply process mining and help you get value.
Yeah, and speaking of, do you want to jump into showing us how we can get spun up quickly or get it started?
Yeah, this is I don't want to say my favorite part because it's like children. These are all the things that I'm saying are my favorite. They're all equal. They're all equal. But one of the things that I do love about process mining is that our customers already have the skills to get started with it. That's the best part. Is like this isn't a 6-month implementation. This is literally activate a plugin and away you go type of thing. I always like to joke that if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball, or if you can build a ServiceNow report, you can visualize your processes in a matter of minutes. So what I'm going to show you here is we'll just come here. We're going to say create new project. And for those that have not seen this before, where I am right now is I'm in what is known as the process mining workspace. So you can get to that from your list of workspaces. I mentioned earlier about those evaluation projects. Simply go to your instance. Once you upgrade to Xanadu, you're going to see in your workspace list, process mining workspace. And when you come here, you're going to see evaluation project. I think I might even have that incident one somewhere down here if I typed evaluation. There it is. It's going to be that one. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a project from scratch. So we've given you one, but like it really ain't that hard to do. So we'll hit create new project. We're going to load up what is known as our guided setup experience for process mining projects creation. And we're just going to call this one Earl. And then we're going to pick our table. And any table that has auditing turned on is going to be available to us in list. And that's the real magic. What's creating these maps and what's getting us to these insights is that we're exposing or using the audit log data. So as records change on the ServiceNow platform, most of you probably know, we capture those changes in the audit log. That's what we're using here underneath the covers. So auditing is a big piece and it's turned on for something like 150 tables by default. Anything extended from task is going to have auditing turned on. More than likely, you would have had specifically to go turn auditing off for any of the applications that we're rolling out. But when you do create your own applications, you want to make, and you're thinking about using process mining with them, you do want to make sure that auditing is turned on for that app, or at least the table. That's kind of like the meat of the workflow. And we're going to say create project. It's going to take us to a place where we start to scope and define what data we want to use from the incident table in our analysis. It's a really pretty straightforward thing. Just like a report, you're going to add some filter criteria. I always like to guide folks to say, hey, let's focus on work that has completed the process, right? Which is a good way to do that is say active is false. Because look, can you mine open work? Of course you could. But if we're trying to improve a process, we should look at work that's went all the way through it to identify where the bottlenecks are. So this is a great way to do it. And then just like any other report, you start narrowing it down based on your use case, certain time periods, certain categories, whatever it might be. People often ask, hey, Dan, how much data can you mine? The answer is, I really don't care how much data you can mine, but I would hope that your process has evolved over the last 7 years. Right? You don't want to mine how the process used to perform. You want to mine how it's performing today because you want to fix the problems that you have today, not 7 years ago. So usually like a month or a quarter is a good set of data to kind of give you an understanding of where you can potentially improve. If you want to do longer term trend-based analysis, that's what performance analytics or platform analytics is for. Since we don't have a use case, I'm just going to simply stop here and say just get all my incidents in this instance. Then the only other thing we absolutely have to do is we need to add what is known as an activity. What is the thing that's changing over time on the record that we want to analyze? Very often that's state, like you saw in that first example. Assignment group is a good activity to add. You can add more than one activity per map and then use views to toggle them on and off. I always like to start simple and just keep it at state to begin with. But again, you can have as many of these things as you want, these activities on the map as you want. Another common use case is looking at how things are being reprioritized or recategorized as part of a process. But you need to have at least one activity. And then you want your breakdowns. Remember how we sliced and diced the map by the contact type of email? You can have up to 10 breakdowns per project. I'm going to add assignment group, category, and maybe contact type here to this project. Any choice or reference field. For those of you that have experienced platform analytics before and you spent 45 minutes creating a breakdown, look how easy that was. We just selected it from a list. And then again, we could mine right now, but of course you're going to want to add some of those handy dandy improvement opportunities, right? Remember that list of those things that jump started our analysis, like things that go into the state of awaiting caller info. We provide some of these as part of a content pack for each of the main workflows like ITSM, customer service case, HRSD, some of the rule-based ones. But they're not hard to create if you want to create your own. So let's just add a new one, maybe we'll add like a rework detector. So we'll look for things that are going into a state, leaving, and then eventually coming back. So we'll come in here, we'll say rework. Here's a list of all the different detectors we have: rework, ping pong, extra steps, slow transition. We want to detect the pattern on the state field. What category? Well, if it's rework, it's typically a quality issue. And then if you are using platform analytics, you can link it to a KPI. And that way, whenever you add this KPI to a dashboard, if there's any process mining insights tied to that KPI, they will surface in that insights panel on the right-hand side of your platform analytics dashboard. Really powerful way to get more people involved and exposed to the power of process mining. So we've got our improvement opportunities, and now we're done. We hit review and mine. It's going to give us a nice little summary of all the things that we configured here. Fantastic. We hit the mine button. You get two options, sample and full mine. Sample mine just mines the first 3,600 records to help you test things out. Full mine will mine the entire data set. And now here's a big piece. We get this question a lot, or like, hey, is there going to be any impact on the performance of my instance with process mining? The answer is no, because we've designed it in a really smart way. What's happening right now is it's going out, it's harvesting the relevant audit log data based on that filter criteria that we put in. It breaks that query up into small 900 record chunks, so there's not a big query going against the database at this point. Once it harvests that data, it passes the information off to the machine learning infrastructure in the data center to do all the heavy duty number crunching and compute. That same machine learning infrastructure that you're using for predictive or task intelligence, NLU, so the data never leaves your data center. It's getting done, all the work's happening over there. When it's done, it spits the finished project back into your instance, cleans everything up on the trainer, and away we go. This is the piece. This usually takes anywhere from 30 seconds to a couple of minutes, depending on the volume of data. But this is the piece that gets our customers really excited, right? They see the power of process mining, and then they see the speed and ease of use in which we can get them to those insights. Most process mining projects outside of ServiceNow with a third-party solution take weeks to months. We do it in minutes. It's one of those things that you can turn on and start getting immediate value out of. It's a huge, huge advantage that we provide our customers. And it's one of the reasons why it should be just come part of anytime you're creating a new app, just create a project from a process mining perspective. Get visibility from day one in terms of how things are working. Like I always like to say, hey, how soon is too soon to know you have an opportunity to improve? Do you want to wait 6 months to know that everything's, or 72% of the work's being assigned to the wrong assignment group, or do you want to know that within the first week or two? That's the advantage that we provide, and we've made it really easy to get there.
I want to re-emphasize what I just saw happen live. So correct me if I'm wrong. Turn the plugin on, create a project,
Okay.
new activity, and you're basically in. Because when I was watching you do that, that was only 5 minutes at most, and then when you hit that button for the initial mine, that was like 1.5 minutes at most. And so within less than 10 minutes, you're already spun up looking at your data in your instance in a brand new way, looking for all the things that you can get from process mining and all the potential insights and or action items that potentially can come from having that data finally presented in a way that is good for analysis.
You are spot on, and that's one of my favorite parts of my job. Don't tell anyone. Let's keep this between us, Earl. But sometimes I feel like I'm stealing ServiceNow's money doing this job. Like we've made it so easy for customers to get started with the solution. I'll give you just a little story. I met with a customer recently that had been evaluating process mining solutions for a number of years now. And I said, okay, well, let's do a quick little, proof of value for you. And they said, well, how long, like, how much time are we going to have to spend on this? Because we just spent a whole year with another vendor doing a little proof of value and nothing really came of it. And I said, well, you turn on the plugin, you give me access to your instance. In 5 minutes, I'm going to show you something you did not know about your process and an opportunity to improve. And they were like, come on, you're joking. And literally, that's all it took is like we turned it on. We created a project like you just saw me do, and we found 2 or 3 things that they had no idea what was going on, and they were like, "This is amazing." It is that easy to get started with the solution. It's really really powerful. It's in my 9 years here at ServiceNow, this is the most fun I've had working with this specific part of the platform.
That really was 6.5 minutes for you to get to that point.
I didn't fake anything. This was all live. It was really on an instance that was real audit log data. Really, the hardest part of this for most customers, and we believe is the cloning process if they want to try it themselves and remembering to include the audit log data. Because even though I'll tell a customer 10 times, include the audit log, we get on the instance and the audit data is not there. So now that we have that evaluation project in your production instance, we don't have to worry about the cloning anymore, and you can start to see it with your own data. So that is usually where it is. The real work with process mining is not in the project creation like we just saw. It's in the diving into the data and to dig into the data. Like, yes, we're doing our best to surface where there might be opportunities, but really the actionable stuff is going to be in the records themselves, using the clustering. We're adding in Yokohama, we added some Now Assist based cluster summarization on top of those clusters for work notes and some of the unstructured data to help streamline it a little bit more. But that's where kind of the work is not in the creation of the project, it's in the digging in up to the data itself. But it's also kind of fun. I had one customer, I met with them one week, we turned it on, we did kind of what we did here. I came back a week later, they said, Dan, this is the most addicting thing that I've ever been involved with. Like, I can't, every time I look at it, I keep asking more questions. I can't pull myself away from the workspace because I keep finding new things that I want to dig deeper into. That's where the time is spent, is digging into the data.
Any of the resources that Dan has spoken about during this entire episode we'll have in the description, so go ahead and go to the description to find any links there. Dan, did you have anything else that you wanted to say to end out this overview of process mining for the first time on our channel?
No, and I'll say the links that Earl's going to provide, there's going to be a lot of content out there. One thing, like most of the other platform-based capabilities, we do host a monthly academy. So there is a Process Mining Academy out there. There's about 30 or so recorded episodes. We'll get you the link to the main landing page so you can register if you're interested in keeping in touch with us. We talked about that use case series, so we'll put that link in there as well. We talked about the Now Learning course to get yourself some hands-on experience in addition to an evaluation project, so we'll provide a link to that as well. And then there's no shortage of content out there. There's probably 200 hours worth of my voice, and we don't want you to have to listen to all of it. So we do have an article called The Guide to Getting Started with Process Mining that distills that 200 hours down to like the 4 or 5 most useful things if you're just getting started with process mining. So we'll also put that in the chat.
And that wraps up the end of this episode of Creator Toolbox. We have a lot more episodes coming and or already posted, so check that out on our channel. Thanks, everyone.